She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that wasn't meant for anyone to hear, yet I caught it anyway. It slipped past her lips like something secret, and I realized in that instant how easily she disarmed me. She was older, not just in years, but in the way she carried herself. Everything about her moved with intention, as if even silence was a choice. I wasn't supposed to notice the small things, the way her hair fell loose against her neck, the careful pause she gave before answering a question, the faint trace of perfume that lingered like a story she'd never tell. But I noticed. I always noticed. I told myself I was just watching, just curious. But when she looked at me, really looked, it felt like she was peeling away excuses I didn't even know I made. We were alone that evening, though it didn't start that way. People had been around, voices filling the air, but one by one they slipped out until it was just her and me. The room seemed to change because of it, quieter, heavier, charged with something I didn't have a name for. I sat too close. Or maybe she did. Our hands rested on the same wooden table, just inches apart. I tried not to stare, but every time she shifted, her bracelets gave the smallest sound, a reminder she was there, close enough that if I leaned forward, my shoulder would brush hers. Too deep, she murmured suddenly, though it wasn't about me. She was looking at the glass in her hand, swirling what was left, as though the dark liquid held some secret. I smiled before I could stop myself. Then maybe, I said carefully, you should let me go deeper. Her eyes lifted, slow, deliberate, catching mine. For a second, I thought I'd gone too far. The silence stretched, pressing into my chest like weight. Then she tilted her head, not smiling exactly, but not pulling away either. Something flickered there, amusement maybe, or something else I couldn't yet name. You're young, she said softly, but it wasn't dismissal. It was observation, almost curiosity. And you're not? I asked before I could bite it back. My voice carried more than I meant, rougher, sharper, but she didn't seem offended. If anything, she looked alive. Her hand shifted, just slightly, brushing against mine. It wasn't an accident, it couldn't have been. The touch was too precise, too brief. My skin burned where her fingers had grazed me. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat refused. I just sat there, watching her, my chest tight with a kind of tension I'd never known before. Every little detail of her, the way she set her glass down, the way her lips parted as if to speak and then closed again, pulled me deeper in. The air between us wasn't empty. It was full, of glances that lasted too long, of words unsaid, of breaths we hadn't yet taken. Her eyes softened, just barely, and she leaned closer. Not enough to close the space, but enough that I could feel the warmth of her, enough that my pulse stumbled against itself. Then, just as the silence bent towards something inevitable, the door behind us creaked open. A voice called her name, casual, unaware, cutting the moment clean in half. She pulled back instantly, too quickly, as though nothing had happened. But her hand lingered on the table a second longer, fingers curling slightly, betraying what she didn't say. And me? I sat frozen, still caught in the gravity of her eyes, wondering if I'd imagined it all, or if the truth was deeper than either of us dared admit. After the interruption, the night should have ended. That would have been easier, safer. But when the door closed again and the voice faded down the hallway, the silence returned, heavier than before. She didn't look at me right away. She stared at her glass, then the floor, as if trying to collect herself. I almost spoke, some meaningless joke to cut the tension, but something in her posture stopped me. Her shoulders were too stiff, her hand gripping the stem of the glass too tightly. Finally, she exhaled, slow and deliberate. You shouldn't. Her voice broke off before finishing the thought. I leaned forward slightly. Shouldn't what? Her eyes lifted to mine, guarded now. Shouldn't look at me like that. I wanted to protest, to tell her I wasn't looking at her any certain way, but the truth sat between us, undeniable. I was looking at her like that. And she knew it. She set the glass aside and rubbed her wrist absently, as though fidgeting kept her grounded. You're too young. People would talk. They always talk. There it was. The thing unspoken until now. The years between us, the weight of what others might say if they saw. She was mid-40s, experienced, steady. I was barely past 20, still finding footing in the world. The math didn't add up, not in anyone else's eyes. But in that moment, none of it mattered. You think I care what people say? My voice came out softer than I meant, but steady. Her lips curved into something caught between a smile and a frown. You should. I do. She stood then, moving past me toward the shelf at the far side of the room. Her hand skimmed along the books as though searching, though I knew she wasn't really looking for anything. She just needed distance. I watched the way her fingers hovered over spines, her shoulders tense, her body both graceful and weary at once. There was loneliness in her movements, a kind of practiced solitude. I wondered when she had last allowed anyone this close. Have you ever? I started, but the question hung unfinished. Her head tilted slightly, waiting. Been with someone younger? The words slipped before I could stop them. A long pause. Then she laughed, low, husky, almost sad. Once. Years ago. It ended badly. She turned, her eyes softer now, though shadowed. He thought he could save me. I didn't want saving. I swallowed, unsure what to do with that. Her honesty felt like a door opening just a crack. When she stepped closer again, the air shifted. She stopped beside me, resting her hand lightly on my shoulder as if steadying herself. The weight of it lingered, sending heat crawling down my arm. I tilted my head up, meeting her eyes. She didn't move away. Instead, her breath brushed against my cheek, warm, steady, so close I could count the tiny lines at the corners of her lips. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the space between us. She didn't kiss me, not yet. But she didn't pull her hand away either. The silence was louder than words, and in it, something bound us tighter than either of us wanted to admit. Her hand still rested on my shoulder when the faint buzz of her phone shattered the silence. The sound was sharp, too loud in the quiet room. She pulled back instantly, fingers retreating as if burned. We both looked toward the table where it vibrated against the wood. The name flashing on the screen was hidden by the angle, but her reaction gave her away. Her jaw tightened, eyes narrowing, lips pressed into a line. Whoever it was, they mattered. She didn't answer. Just let it ring, staring at it like it was accusing her. The air between us was fragile, ready to snap. I shifted, the urge to close the space unbearable. But before I could move, footsteps echoed faintly in the hallway outside. Both of us froze. A voice, casual, unknowing, drifted closer. You still up? Her eyes darted to me, wide, warning. Without thinking, I slid back in my chair, putting inches between us just as the door handle rattled. My chest hammered. The door cracked open. A friend, someone too oblivious to sense the tension, poked his head in. He grinned lazily. Oh, thought you were alone. Didn't mean to interrupt. She smiled, a practiced, flawless mask. Just talking, she said smoothly. The friend's eyes flicked between us, curious but unconcerned. Right. Don't stay up too late. With a yawn, he left, door clicking shut behind him. The silence that followed was unbearable. We both let out breaths we hadn't realized we'd been holding. That was close. I muttered, running a hand through my hair. Her gaze lingered on me, softer now, but with something sharp beneath. This is dangerous, she whispered, almost to herself. I wanted to argue, to say it wasn't. But the truth was written in my pulse, in the way her presence pulled at me like gravity. Dangerous or not, I couldn't step away. She moved then, not far, but close enough that her knee brushed mine. It was small, maybe unintentional, but the spark of it sent heat spiraling through me. We sat like that, too close, our breaths sinking without meaning to. Her eyes dropped to my lips, just for a second, before flicking away. I leaned forward, not enough to touch, just enough to feel the warmth of her skin. My heart pounded so loud I was sure she could hear it. Her hand twitched on the table, as though she wanted to reach for me but couldn't. We shouldn't, she murmured, but her voice betrayed her. It wasn't firm. It was pleading. My throat tightened. Then tell me to stop. Her eyes locked on mine, unblinking, searching. The seconds stretched, unbearable, until finally she whispered, I can't. The words held us in place, both a barrier and an invitation. Neither of us moved. Neither of us kissed. But we were closer than ever, teetering at the edge of something neither of us dared name, the quiet stretch too long, the kind that gnawed at both of us. I could see it in her, the way her hand trembled faintly when she lifted her glass again, the way her eyes avoided mine only to return, drawn back like a tide. Why are you doing this? She asked suddenly, her voice low, tight. Doing what? Looking at me like I'm someone you shouldn't want. The words cut through me. Maybe because you are. Her breath hitched. She looked away, shaking her head, but I caught the smallest flicker of a smile she tried to hide. I leaned closer, emboldened, my voice barely above a whisper. Tell me to stop. Tell me you don't feel it. She turned then, finally meeting my gaze, and what I saw there stripped me bare. Longing. Fear. Hunger. You're too young, she whispered, though it sounded more like an excuse than a truth. Then why can't you move away? Her lips parted, but no sound came. Instead, she pressed a hand to her temple, like she was trying to hold herself together. When I reached up, without thinking, and brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, she froze. My fingers lingered longer than they should, the soft warmth of her skin making my pulse stumble. She closed her eyes for a second, leaning, not fully, just enough that her cheek nearly touched my hand. You don't know what you're asking for, she said, her voice unsteady. I know exactly what I'm asking for. The room seemed smaller, the air thicker. I shifted closer, so near I could feel her breath against my lips. She didn't pull back. Someone's going to get hurt, she murmured. Then let it be me. Her eyes opened wide, glimmering in the dim light. For the first time, she didn't mask it. The years she carried, the loneliness, the fear of being seen, all of it was right there. She pressed her palm against my chest, not to push me away but to steady herself. I covered her hand with mine, holding it there, feeling her heartbeat against my skin. You don't understand, she said, but it was softer now, almost broken. Then make me understand. My voice dropped, rough, closer to a plea than I intended. Her face hovered inches from mine. I could feel the tremor in her breath, the way her lips parted as if to speak but stopped. Seconds bled into eternity. My hands ached to hold her, to close the unbearable distance. And then she whispered it, the words that undid us both. I can't keep pretending I don't want this. The confession hung in the air, heavy, electric, a fuse lit and burning fast. I leaned in, heart hammering, ready to erase the space between us, and the sharp knock at the door shattered everything. The knock at the door didn't stop. 3 sharp raps, steady, insistent. She stiffened, her hand still pressed to my chest, frozen like a statue carved in panic. Don't, she whispered, barely audible. Don't say a word. The door creaked open before I could answer. A woman's voice, sharp, uncertain, cut through the stillness. I thought you were asleep. Her friend. Close enough to notice things. Too close. I shifted back instinctively, putting space between us, but the air still hummed with what almost happened. She moved quickly, slipping past me, her body brushing mine just enough to leave heat lingering. I couldn't sleep, she said evenly, her tone practiced calm. Just needed air. The friend studied her, eyes flicking from her flushed cheeks to me, sitting too rigid, too silent. I could feel suspicion hanging in the room like smoke. Finally, the friend sighed. Be careful. People notice more than you think. And with that, she left, the door shutting again, this time with a click that sounded final. The silence that followed wasn't relief. It was heavier, more dangerous. She leaned against the table, her breathing uneven. You see? Her voice cracked on the words. This is exactly what I meant. We're already noticed. Already. She trailed off, pressing a hand to her lips as though trying to trap the truth inside. I stood, moving closer despite myself. Already what? Her eyes snapped to mine, wide, raw. Already too deep. The echo of my earlier words twisted back now, sharper, undeniable. She turned away, pacing, her fingers running along the edge of the table like she needed an anchor. I told myself this was harmless. That I could sit here with you and pretend it didn't mean anything. But it does. It always did. Her voice trembled, and with it, something inside me broke open. I stepped closer, close enough that the scent of her hair reached me, close enough to see the way her shoulders rose and fell. I lifted my hand, not touching yet, just hovering near her arm. Then stop pretending. Her breath caught. She didn't move away, but she didn't turn either. If anyone finds out, if anyone knows, they already suspect. I cut in. Your friend just proved it. She spun to face me then, her eyes blazing, but it wasn't anger. It was something fiercer, wilder. She pressed her palm flat against my chest again, and I felt the tremor in her hand. You don't understand what you're asking of me, she whispered, her voice breaking. I caught her wrist gently, holding it against me. Then show me. Let me understand. For a heartbeat we stood locked like that, her trembling, me refusing to let her pull away. Her lips parted, her gaze flicking to my mouth before she shut her eyes tight, as though that would save her. But when she opened them again, the decision was written there, fragile but certain. She stepped closer, so close the line between danger and desire blurred completely. I can't stop this anymore, she breathed. The room had shrunk around us. No walls, no air, just the two of us locked in a gravity we couldn't escape. Her hand still trembled against my chest, and I could feel every uneven beat of her heart through it. Say it, I whispered, my mouth so close to hers the words brushed her lips. Say you don't want me, and I'll walk away. Her eyes flickered shut, lashes trembling, jaw tightening as if she were summoning the strength to deny me. But no words came. Only silence. I slid my hand up her arm, slowly, deliberately, until my palm cupped her face. Her skin was warm beneath my touch, softer than I had imagined in every stolen glance, every almost moment that led us here. She leaned into it for half a second, unthinking, instinctive, then tried to pull back, but I held her gently, not letting her escape so easily. You don't get it, she said, her voice shaking. I've spent years building walls, keeping people out. And here you are, tearing them down without even trying. Then stop fighting me, I murmured, my thumb brushing the corner of her mouth. She opened her eyes again, and for the first time, there was no guard, no mask, only raw need and fear tangled together. This will ruin us, she breathed. Or save us, I countered. The silence that followed was unbearable. My forehead touched hers, our breaths mixing, her lips trembling just out of reach. I could taste the choice in the air, bitter and sweet, like something we both regret and crave forever. Then she broke. Not with words, but with motion. Her fingers fisted in my shirt, pulling me to her with a force that was both desperate and certain. The space between us vanished in a rush of heat and surrender. Our lips met, not polished, not careful, but messy, raw, a collision of everything unsaid. She tasted like resolve cracking open, like years of restraint set on fire. I kissed her back with the urgency of someone who knew this might be the first and last time. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, her forehead still rested against mine. Her hand slid down my chest, lingering at my heartbeat as if memorizing it. I can't undo this, she whispered. You don't have to, I answered. For a moment, there was no fear, no outside world, just the truth we'd been circling since the beginning. She saw me, and I saw her, stripped of everything else. And in that clarity, messy and imperfect as it was, we both knew, whatever came next, nothing between us would ever be the same again. The kiss had changed everything, yet the silence after felt even louder. We sat there, breathing hard, eyes locked, as if waiting for the other to admit it had gone too far. But neither of us did. She pulled back first, just enough to steady me. Her gaze traced my face like she was memorizing it, like she was trying to weigh the cost of what just happened. I could see the battle still inside her, years of caution, of hiding behind walls. Her hand was still on my chest, though, and she hadn't let go. "I was so sure this would end in regret," she whispered. "That I'd hurt you. That you'd resent me." I shook my head, leaning into her touch. "The only regret I'd have is walking away right now." Her lips curved, just barely, into something fragile but real. She laughed softly, not polished, not rehearsed, but tired and honest. "You make it sound so simple." "Maybe it is," I said. And for once, I believed it. We didn't rush this time. No desperate pull, no crashing together. Instead, I reached for her hand, slow and certain, and laced my fingers through hers. She hesitated for a beat, then squeezed back. That single, quiet gesture felt more intimate than the kiss. We sat like that, hands joined, shoulders brushing, while the weight of everything else, the age gap, the whispers, the risks, settled around us. For once, it didn't feel like a reason to run. It felt like something we could face. She leaned into me, resting her head against my shoulder. I closed my eyes, breathing her in, the faint trace of her perfume, the warmth of her hair against my cheek. My arm wrapped around her almost naturally, holding her close. For the first time, I felt her relax. Not completely, but enough. Enough to know she wasn't pretending anymore. "Your trouble," she murmured, her voice muffled against me. I smiled into her hair. "Then keep me close. That way I can't cause too much damage." She laughed again, softer this time, and the sound wrapped itself around me like something I'd been waiting for without realizing it. Minutes passed in silence, the kind that didn't need filling. I pressed a gentle kiss against her forehead, a promise without words. She tilted her face up, eyes meeting mine, not afraid this time, not guarded. Whatever tomorrow brought, whatever complications waited outside that door, in this moment we were together. And for once, that was enough.